Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. This one being broadcast live June 3rd. It's going to be a good show. We've got DJI to talk about. They're not going to be stopping selling their drones here in the US anytime soon. Everybody seems to want or is threatening to flee Shutterstock. And I only bring that up because I want to share my earnings over the last year and what it might mean for you all as far as earnings goes. I know some of you like to dabble in stock photography. Let's take a look at that and look at some strong alternatives, or at least one that I'm starting to explore. Plus, we're going to be reviewing your photos and editing in them and sharing some of our favorite editing tips. And today I am joined by David Carr, good friend and co-host of the show today. David, how are you?
I'm doing well. Obviously it's been kind of a crazy week all over the country, but I'm doing well. You know, I really can't complain.
Yeah, good, good. Well, it's good to have you here. Steve has other commitments, so he can't be here. Hopefully, we'll see him back next week. Yeah, you mentioned this week. I mean, 2020 has been pretty wild, and then this week just on top of it. And you know, there's part of me. We were talking a little bit before the show. There's part of me that was like, I don't know. Should I do this show? Two guys sitting in their rooms talking about camera stuff. Is that really important right now?
Yeah.
But you know, one, it's my job. It's part of what I do to make the living, and I need to keep doing that.
Sure.
Two, I think, as you said, you know, it's nice to have some other content. But we both are on the same page in that we absolutely recognize how hard this is for a large portion of the population.
Yeah.
And our hearts are with you all.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. It is always hard when the national attention is on something else that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. And then if it does sometimes feel like, well, now we're going to interject with this totally off topic thing. But, you know, I think I think it's healthy to have, I don't want to say a distraction, but you know, at least this is something all of us can come around that we enjoy, and let's celebrate photography for the next hour and a half or so and just enjoy that, you know? So I think it's okay.
Yep. I think that's good. In chat room, thank you so much for joining us wherever you are. Some of you are sharing the weather reports from your different locations. Some of you, it looks like it's stinking hot already. I'm sorry about that. We've been having just gorgeous weather here in Seattle, which is very, very, very nice. So just hello to everybody in the chat who has joined us. And Roy is in there again. Thank you, Roy, so much. He had to miss last week because of a commitment. So if you have questions, Roy will be collecting those. David McKay is in the chat too. David, nice to see you in there. And he's reminding everybody so nicely that tomorrow night at 6 p.m. we'll be back with the third episode of our Creative Lounge series. I have absolutely loved the first two. I'm really excited to talk to Mark Loper. He is a fantastic aviation photographer. So what kind of gear is he using to get some of these shots? And some of these shots, it's clear that he's, I believe, in another airplane. So I want to hear how he's doing all this, how he's capturing what he is. So make sure you tune in for that. And if you are not available at 6 p.m., then you can watch the replay later. But it's great if you can watch live, because then you can ask questions as they come up, be part of the discussion. And I just have really loved the feel of them. They've been great so far. The past two are on my channel, and you can go watch those if you're interested. Yeah, good. Yeah, Brian says, go ahead.
Oh, you have to pardon my dog. I'm muting the microphone while she barks at the neighbors that are walking by. That's just her MO.
She needs to let them know that they should not be out for a walk right now for whatever reason.
She lets everything know that it shouldn't be in her purview. So
yeah. Well, I've got two dogs, and the typical MO is the male, anytime he gets excited with somebody walking by, has to hump the female. And so that's always entertaining to the little kids too.
I'm sure.
As well. All right. So let's dive into the show. The first part of the show is where we kind of catch up on what we've been covering over the last couple of weeks. And if you go to photorec.tv, the top post is the show notes. I forgot to link it down below, but it'll be there soon if you're watching after the fact. David, have you gotten a new how you're editing up yet?
No. So I'm actually helping some friends with some home remodeling stuff this week, and I've just been slammed, and I really, really wanted to get the next video up before today. I just didn't, but I'm going to try to get it up by tomorrow. We'll see.
Awesome. Can you give us a tease? Is it that Antarctica shot, or you got something else you're working on?
Well, it's not the Antarctica. It's going to be an image of me selling my dog. Yeah, getting rid of her. It is an image of, so I shot a wedding last Tuesday. I mentioned this on the last show. I shot a wedding last Tuesday, and sorry, I hope that if that's distracting, I'll digress.
Totally fine.
So, but anyway, in shooting the wedding, it's very important to get the ring, them putting the rings on the finger. And it's really hard sometimes to, it's this small little part of the whole ceremony, and you're trying to get it. And so I was able to get really close, but I still kind of missed the bride's ring going on. And so I did a little magic, and it's there now. So
That's cool.
I want to show what I did, and there were some other steps leading up to it, and it could be controversial because it could be like, well, that's not really what happened, so why would you show that? That's like their big day. But I was like, well, they'll have a shot, of her actual ring. It will be on her finger. I had to manipulate it a little bit in Photoshop, and I think it looks good.
Awesome. You've sent a couple sample pictures because we're going to talk a little bit about that in our top editing tips section. I'm really excited to hear how you did it. Yeah. I don't think anybody would bat an eye. Anybody who's important would bat an eye about that being a composite. Sure. It doesn't matter. It's a moment, and it is as real as the real moment. Yeah, and I was able to get the bride putting the groom's ring on beautifully. It's just, weddings are happening. They're just happening. You can't say do that again. And so you do the best you can. I also had a couple issues, and I'm not going to do this in the video, but I had a couple issues with some of the key moments not being tack sharp. And it's so frustrating when you're trying to do that. But I had quite a good bit of luck with Topaz AI Sharpen. I actually bought it. I bought it and I'm glad I did, because it saved about 3 or 4 shots for me. So that were otherwise unusable. Yeah, they were. They're not like perfect, but you look at them and you're like, oh, cool. They fit in with the whole gallery pretty beautifully. And I would not have been able to include some of these photos without it. So that's cool. That's a good testimonial on that. And that reminds me that one of the things that we're going to talk about on the show is the Nik collection was released today. I've installed it, so I'll demo some of those features a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Let me ask you, this is kind of on topic to what you're discussing. Sure. I had somebody reach out. They're usually in the chat. I don't see them in the chat today. Somebody reached out, and they showed me a couple of wedding photos they had edited where the groom hadn't looked so smily. And so they did a little editing magic to make them a little more smiley. Oh, okay. What do you think about that, David Carr? That's a tough call, because I think manipulating someone's face, it's very hard to get that to where it looks believable. We do have some tools in Photoshop now. It's been the last 3 years or so with Liquify. Now you can increase the smile. You can open the eyes a little more. You could do all of that before, but they've got it a little more automated now. It's easier to do, but you have to be really subtle with that. And I just don't know. I will say in one of the wedding shots, they had the groom had 3 sons, I guess, from a previous marriage, and they were kind of younger. And one of them just made it a point to make goofy faces the whole time. And I kept trying, I kept trying to tell him, like, hey man, just give me one real smile. And I finally found one that was sort of acceptable. And the bride emailed me back today and said, hey, is there another shot of him? Because he's making a goofy face. And he admitted to us that he was making goofy faces the whole time. And so I was able to find another shot where it's not quite as bad. And I did some face swapping. And then one of the other sons looked like he would rather be watching paint dry than be at the wedding. So I had to find a shot of him that was a little more flattering. And so I don't mind head swapping a little bit here and there, face swapping. But I don't know about manipulating the whole face. We'll have to see. I don't know. My reply was, unless they specifically had asked for this, like in your case, your clients were looking for some and acknowledging that the kid was being a pain. Yeah. I said, unless they are, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Because, it's one of those things. But your point, one, I remember shooting weddings, bribing children. candy. I got candy for you.
Exactly.
Not trying not to be the creepy guy, but we need
I
some
know.
good faces for just a moment here.
I know. Well, and now, now if you get at least a couple that are usable, I love that I can go swap them out. And so I try to at least make sure that I've captured a few images that I could use as sort of a donor for the not so great image. And it worked out. It actually looks great now. You would never know. And she's happy. So
yeah. Nice. Good. It also makes me think of Step Brothers. I told you I didn't want the salmon. So just great as he storms off from the wedding as a 30-year-old man-child. Yes. Yeah,
that's probably not too far from the truth for a lot of weddings. So
yeah. It's always interesting shooting weddings and getting a glimpse of all of that. All right. So your channel is linked right down below this video. Folks can follow that to see when you post that. And of course, watch your other excellent How I Edit videos.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And this past week, I released another of my quick tips, the Monday Minute, which I saw Adobe themselves are now starting to do 60-second tutorials on Lightroom. I think theirs are mostly focused on Lightroom Mobile. I just want to think that they saw one of my recent videos and were like, we should do a short series too. I'm sure that's what it happened.
That's what it was.
I talked a little bit about keywords and being able to spray them on with the spray paint tool, which I think the spray paint tool is often a little overlooked as its usefulness in both being able to add multiple keywords with one click or one click and drag, or fixing weird rotations on images, or applying presets to a series of images very quickly, and a variety of other things that you can do with the spray paint can. So that was a quick look at that. And I think I will be back next week. I can't remember what I want to talk about next week. I've already recorded it. That's sad. But that will be out. And then in the future, I want to talk about really cleaning up Lightroom so it just shows you the stuff you need, like soft proofing. Do you ever click soft proofing?
I've looked up many times what does soft proofing mean, and it's just one of those like I don't even care, but I don't ever do it. And in fact, sometimes I'll accidentally hit the S key, and I'm like, what happened? What happened?
Yes. It was only like a couple of months ago that I would remember, it's the S key, because I would do that too, put myself into the soft proofing mode. But I can show you still can't avoid hitting that S key, but at least taking it off the little bar at the bottom so that you don't accidentally click it there if you ever use it. I never use it.
I never do too. There are certain tools in there. And in fact, I'm excited to watch your latest one because I've never really used the spray can tool. It's funny because the way my brain works, something will be staring me right in the face that's very obvious, and I just don't see it unless I'm told to see it, because I'm just looking at the things I know. And so that's something that I think could probably be very useful, and I just really haven't done it. So
yeah, it can be. I mean, I really like, I'm not as big on keywords as I used to be. I used to be very, very, every image had to have several keywords that really allowed me categorize it in different ways. I'm a lot more general now, but it's just a nice quick way, first and foremost, to add some keywords.
That's cool. Cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that catches us up. And again, just a reminder, tomorrow night, 6 p.m. on this channel, photorec.tv/lounge is another way to access it. We'll be talking to Mark Roper, aviation photographer. So please make a little note, or even better yet, open up another tab right now, go to my YouTube channel, and you will see this video scheduled, and click a little set reminder for yourself. And while you're clicking around, go ahead and give this show a thumbs up if you haven't already. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. Let's dive into... I think that's everything that I want to say, except pen members. Many of us in the community, in the chat, are pen members. One of the other things that I want to mention is David McKay's fantastic Tuesday tip. Pen members, you get an article in your email, an email in your inbox every Tuesday on a variety. Sometimes it's very technical. Sometimes it's from the heart. Sometimes it's sharing some of the soul of photography. I love the diversity of what we all write about. And yesterday, David sent out an email using Frank's pictures from Alaska, from one of the protests there, and talking about using your camera as a voice for change. And David always writes from the heart, but you can tell that this one has particular meaning to him. And just seeing the replies come in from folks who have read it and really feel it, it's good. It's good. So if you're not a Pen member, consider joining. There's a lot of fantastic resources, including articles written from the heart that you're not getting anywhere else, honestly. So I just appreciate that. So thank you, David McKay, for sharing that. And I just like to say, David shared it with me first and is like, is this okay? Because it does take a stance in all of this. And I think sometimes for companies that can be scary. And of course you want to make sure that most people in the company are on board. And when I say company, it's me and Allie and David, really. And I really appreciate being part of something that is very human and shares and has feelings and takes stances on issues that I think are important. And I'm kind of coming back to the beginning part, and I don't want to go down it too much, but one of the things I'm really struggling to figure out exactly how I can be helpful here. And one of the things I think is to really support companies that are socially mindful. And I had decided that a while back, among other issues, mostly environmental, but I think it so applies here as well, maybe even more so. And I just appreciate companies that take a stance, and I'm happy to support them.
That's good.
So
it's good. I think I'd like to say that. I think, and if I can just weigh in on that for a second, I do think we're in a place where everything has been stirred up so much emotion. A lot of really terrible stuff has happened in the last week. I mean, it was bad enough what initially happened, and what's been happening for years and years and years that's led up to this point. But it is a massive wake up call, and I know that a lot of people are wondering what am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm asking myself that. Like when I see the signs that say, white people do something, I'm going, okay, I want to, but I don't know what's effective right now. And but I think just like you said, supporting companies and organizations that just are truly, like, putting the politics aside, just truly saying, like, look, it's time for systemic change. That's a good first step, and so yeah, it's a humbling time we're in for sure. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay. All right, let's move into one of our favorite parts of the show. And this is where we share your pictures that you've sent in to us. And we do a little editing on them and share some tips and tricks as well. So it feels like from week to week, I should remember exactly what I'm doing. But for whatever reason, here we go. All right. Got it. It's working. Okay, first up is Tanya's macro. And I love, Tanya, that you send in, 1 week it might be a fantastic macro, another week it is a self-portrait. I love the kind of the breadth of your work as well. So it's great to have all of that content in there. And you know what? Let's just full screen that. There we go. I only recently learned that I could do that. So I can now pick my nose behind the scenes. There you go. While we're teaching editing. That's what it's about. But I'm still here, so I can't pick my nose. No, you aren't actually. They can't see you. Oh, they can't. Okay. Oh, no, I see. Yeah, within this box. Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, good. I didn't know you could make that face, David Carr. Gosh, you wouldn't believe the faces I can make. All right. So first up is Tanya's macro shot. And with many of Tanya's pictures, I struggle to give any kind of, feedback that or editing really at first. Yeah. But you know what? I say that, and then I look at this a little bit, and David Carr, let me know what you think. This is such an evenly lit, even toned image all around. Love that you've used these flowers as the out of focus. But one thing that happens is my eye gets kind of drawn up here to this darker, heavier stem. Yeah. And I wonder if we come in a little bit past that. And I think I want to do it on both sides about the same to kind of keep that symmetry. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah, I agree. It's such an unusual scene. It's really cool that it's just kind of mysterious. And I think honing in, getting those darker spots, and you could probably even go in and remove the dark spots that are still there. And just keep everything very even toned in those kind of purplish, lavender or whatever the color is, violet hues. I think you could probably just clean that up, because it really will just bring the viewer into the center a little more. And I would say too, you can't like make nature be something that it's not, but I think it's hard for me to tell from this distance, and just from looking at it on my screen, it's hard for me to tell what the bug is or the insect. And I guess I could look at it larger, but I just initially I don't see specifically what it is. I like the way it's sitting. I like the blade of grass or whatever that is that it's on. But and I see the antennae, so I can tell that it's a bug or it's an insect. But I don't know what it is. I wish it was larger. But again, you can't just make nature be something it's not. So I think like what you did, bringing that in, the more you can hone in on the center, the subject, the better. So it's such a cool vibe, though. I don't want to take away from that.
I totally hear what you're saying, and I think it's a little lightning bug.
Okay.
Which as a West Coaster now, I really miss. We don't have them.
Oh yeah, I've heard that you guys don't have those up there. So.
But it's kind of it's got antenna, which make me think that that's the head up that way. But it is just small enough that it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, maybe if it was like blown up on a big canvas or something, or a big print, then it would be a little more in your face. But it's just it's tough sometimes when the subject is as small as it is here in the overall image.
Yeah. It is perfectly sharp, but it is just a little bit on the small side, which is tricky.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like Tanya's work. I mean, she's submitted a lot of stuff that's just been really fantastic, and you can tell she has a command of the editing and of the overall process of photography. So, there's a lot to really like here. It's just I just felt like because I couldn't tell what I was looking at, it might take away a little bit. So
yeah. But yeah, pretty cool. Thank you, Tanya. And Tanya in chat just says option 2, which is a way for Pen members to submit to the monthly image review, is where she's gotten some of the best feedback around. And I do really proud of that when I'm part of those, but they are in general excellent. Yeah. All right,
yes.
Let's move on. Eric Anderson has Summersby Falls. What's nice here is you've put the viewer down low. And one of the ways, and sometimes I feel like I repeat myself, but I also then listen to radio commercials and they say the phone number you're supposed to call for whatever business it is like 18 times in 15 seconds. So
I've always noticed that. Yeah.
I'm okay with repeating myself a little bit. Yeah. One of the ways to set your photography apart is to put your viewer in at a level that is different than what they're normally seeing as they walk around in the world. I mean, Tanya's image just did that. It took us down into this macro world of this little bug. And I think Eric's photo does this too, because this feels like a really low shot that you wouldn't get unless you put your head down really low. And it makes this fall seem a little bigger. I think it's a decent size, but it makes it seem even a little bit more imposing than if you're just maybe standing here on this rock looking straight at it.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Yeah, I do too. That's a gorgeous shot. I'm wondering if, I just wonder if coming in from the left side a little. Well, of course, then you're going to cut those rocks off. I'm thinking out loud here.
Yeah,
you cut the ends of the rocks off, which maybe that's not what you needed. I felt like I was a little bit distracted by what was off to the left. Not terribly, just.
I think I might be okay splitting that difference because what you get over here is darkness plus just a couple of these branches.
Yeah, that's all. And yeah, I think maybe just coming in there, that's kind of nice. It puts the point of that upper mossy rock touching the frame, and which is good. I like to have a complete picture sometimes of certain objects within the photo. So
yeah,
and I might come in from the right just a touch too, just to make it. I don't know.
That's a tough call.
It is tough because I like the green.
I like the green. I also like that it kind of extends up to this corner.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And let's just see for a second. It's not bad either, though. And you could use extreme and come in really tight.
That's not, it's not bad, you know,
and use that corner instead, which I think is also a viable option as well.
The cool, this is one of those shots I always talk about where I feel like it's already really great just as is. And it's just a matter of what if this, what if that, you know? I think the only thing about the green mossy rock on the right is, I mean, I love it, but in a way it steals the show. It's kind of like the waterfall's saying, look at me, but then this rock is saying, look at me. So
a little dominating.
Yeah. It's tough. I was helping somebody edit a photo today, and I was telling her that, like, there are times when you want to show so many things that were happening in the photo. Like, there was this cool corrugated metal roof in her shot, but the shot had these people doing this work in Mexico, and there was all this cool stuff happening elsewhere. And I was like, and she wanted to include the corrugated metal roof that was in the upper left-hand corner. And I just thought, I understand you want to include it because it looks cool, but it's too many things happening in the one photo, and it's taken away from the subject. So sometimes that's the dilemma we find ourselves in. So
I cleaned up a couple of the little, I think they might have been water droplets in the moss. I cleaned those up. The only other thing that I might work on in here is a brush tool and maybe a little texture and clarity down and noise removal up and saturation down, and work on the water itself. There's just a little bit of noise in this water picking up, and it also has just a bit of a color tint to it. I'm not sure what color, maybe a little blues and purples, but I would just brush and see. Remember, you can hit O and it shows you where you've brushed. My brush flow is turned up to 65, so that's why it's coming through pretty heavy as I brush. And then you turn that back off, and then you just kind of come over to here and work the exposure all the way down and see if anything changes. Work it all the way up. Texture. It actually looks quite good. It's way up as well. I think you can play with that. And also saturation. See if there is more color than you think that comes out of it. And you can really see if you go up, it does find purples and some other colors in there. I wouldn't go all the way down because it starts to look a little unnatural, I think, especially down here in this stretch. Mm-hmm. But I think just down a little bit helps clean that water up a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I think the greens are nice. I was going to say maybe you could go down into the color panel and play with the greens a little bit. But I think they're quite nice.
Yeah, they look really nice to me.
Yeah. Nice, Eric. Thank you for submitting. And Sue Stevens has nicely titled A Walk in the Woods, which, Eric just called his the location. And Tanya, you didn't have a name for yours. Just to remind folks, Brian Scanlon did a guest post about naming your work and putting together several. And I just really loved that. It spoke to me. And I think having this name here helps me. But then honestly, Sue, I get a little lost about what our subject is here. I think what maybe caught your eye was the play of the light and the shadows, and maybe especially this one branch of lovely colored trees, lovely leaves.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the being in the woods, I've noticed this ever since I started doing photography. I would be like in the forest or something, and you're seeing all this beautiful stuff around you, and you've got your camera, so you're thinking like, I want to capture this. And it's one of those things that's really hard to capture what you saw and how it felt and have it do justice to it in the photograph. It's weird. Like you'll be like, it was so gorgeous. And then here it is. And it's still gorgeous, but it's not what I saw, or it doesn't have the grandeur of what I saw. And so it can be really tricky. I think what's really, one of the things I really love about this is the color of the leaves is just, I love that it's not a lot of different colors. I also love all the different colors in fall, but I love that. But I could also see doing something with like a black and white version of this, very abstract with a lot of contrast. Or sometimes you have to look at what's in front of you and say, I could make something sort of like artistic out of this versus trying to make a sort of a landscape pristine photo. Sometimes it's like what you would see in an abstract painting or something where it's almost like, what am I looking at? But it's like, but the shapes and the contours are cool and the texture's cool. So I don't know. I mean, I could talk myself out of the black and white. I just thought wonder if that will do much to it.
Yeah, I think this might be a neat one. We're going to talk about Nik and Nik 3 a little bit later in the show. Their black and white, their silver effects plugin, I think offers some of the quickest and easiest good looking black and whites out there. And so this might be a fun one to throw into that as well. Let's go back to color though. And then I'm just going to reset these because that was a little harsh for color. And then what do you think about trying also a 16:9?
Yeah, that could be cool.
Kind of comes down, uses those that maybe we come in from this tree on the left.
Yeah.
And it really starts to focus here on this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was even going to say keeping the bottom of the frame. Well, it wouldn't be a 16:9 at this point. There's something I kind of noticed in the shadows coming up from the bottom of the frame that I thought was cool, but I'm a sucker for 16:9 shots if I can make them work.
Yeah. And I just want to kind of soften up the rest of this image to try to help those stand out. So I've done 2 graduated filters, one from the top and the bottom. Mm-hmm. And now in this graduated filter, I'm going to just brush in a little bit more in the spots that it didn't get. And just kind of real quick around those leaves there for something like that.
Sure.
Yeah. But so Sue, this is one of those things where I think within this, as we said with the other images too, there's multiple compositions. And I think especially when you're standing there, finding an angle that allows you to really capture these leaves front and center, I think would really make a big difference. So,
yeah. I would agree with that.
All right, Sue, thank you. And Robert, who just joined us a minute ago, offers this one called Citrus in the Morning. And I think you're referring to the color of the sky. I like that. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
This is a very lovely image. It has this kind of soft morning feel. I think even without the title of morning, it has a morning feel to me. Just the way that we have a little bit of fog laying in the field over there.
Yeah.
And just a really pretty sky.
Yeah.
Any suggestions, David?
Well, so I'm struggling because there's so much beauty in this shot. There's so many the colors. I like that it's kind of a dark photo. I'm a sucker for dark photos when they're when the information is just there enough, and it kind of is. The only thing I'm struggling with is I feel like the ground sort of is, I guess, horizon in a sense, not really horizon, but kind of the where the grass stops and you kind of move into the fog and the bushes and stuff. It kind of runs along the center of the frame. And I want to see that more in like a third, but then you're either going to get into a really wide shot, which may not be what you wanted, or you could pull over from the right and keep the tree and the barn. But then you lose some of that fog. So it's kind of one of those like what's worth losing. But I just felt like the rule of thirds kind of thing needed to be a little more prevalent than it was. Because otherwise it's gorgeous. I mean,
yeah, I agree. I think those are some good points. I think this is a beautiful image, but I am a little bothered by the heavy weight of the barn almost smack dab in the center.
Yeah, exactly.
And on top of that, that's where the sun is setting as well. And so, there may be a potential of a composition off to the right a little bit that separates this barn, moves it left, and then you'll have the sun kind of balancing over here a little. That might not have been a shot. That might have been private property or big barbed wire or a big angry bull. Who knows?
Right.
But I do think that could help that some.
Yeah.
The other thing, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, you could treat it as almost like a panoramic, even though it's not really a panoramic. You could go really wide and lose a lot of the grass and just really, really capitalize on the colors and maybe even, it starts to look kind of cool.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yep. That is quite nice.
There was just so much grass that it's like you only need a suggestion of the grass. You don't need an overwhelming amount of it because there's so much gorgeous stuff happening above the grass. So
Yeah. One other thing, well, two things I'd like to try. One, this is minor, but we have the barn breaking the horizon, but just barely breaking the horizon. I like intersections to feel really, I'm totally blanking on the word I want, really like you meant to do that, really deliberate. And so either, changing your height a little bit. So maybe being able to frame the barn underneath the distant mountains, or getting a little bit lower to really make it peak above those. And then one other thing that I'm curious about is channeling Steve Scurich here, is he loves to soften the sky. So if I zero out this and then bring texture down a little bit and clarity down a little bit, and I'm going to bring shadows up. I want some of that sky to soften out just a little bit.
Sure.
And I just, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it looks nice. Skies are tricky. I mean, because they're unpredictable and they're always doing different things. And so, and there are times when I'll add more texture and clarity to a sky depending on what I'm trying to go for. But this does have somebody described it as kind of dreamy. And I agree. It's got this dreamy kind of quality to it. It's got that painting sort of quality to it. So I think softening that sky was nice. And
yeah,
I love it when there's a photo that like there's so much to work with.
Yep.
And then you're just like a matter of just fine tuning it down to what's the ultimate way to present this scene, because there's a lot to see here.
Yep. Robert says he blew it. He knows he blew it with framing. I don't say you blew it, Robert.
No, I wouldn't. I would never say that. No.
But he said, but he was blocking the road and had to head out. So, and speaking of Steve, he flipped this. So in honor of Steve, we got to take a drink here in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting. I think that was a really good call. Let's just flip it back real quick.
Yeah.
Well, not only does it feel cockeyed, but it really doesn't feel nearly as strong.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I'm glad to know that this was flipped beforehand, because I might not have even liked the photo nearly as much the other way. And sometimes that's subjective, because it's like there's certain things where you're like, what difference does it make? But it does make a difference in this case. I feel like it really does look stronger this way for some reason. So I love this image, though. I think it's gorgeous.
It is quite gorgeous.
Nice
All right,
work, Robert.
Yep, nice work. Thank you, everybody who submitted images. We really appreciate that. If you're watching this, you're not a Penn member, one of the many benefits you get is to be able to submit images and hear us talk about them. And you can find out more at photorec.tv/join. We are running a very good special for new members for their first year. It's ridiculously low price. So photorec.tv/Penn to check it out. All right, let's move on to a couple of news stories. I don't know. Let's see. What do we want to talk about first? As soon as I find the news. And by the way, I did put the show notes linked right down below now. All right, first up, DxO launches Nik Collection 3. David, have you been a Nik Collection user in the past? Okay,
so I have. I had the whole suite a while ago, and then I don't know what happened. My license, I lost something. I tried to reload it, lost the license number. I cannot get back in, but it was an older version, so I probably should just get the newer version.
Yeah, I think there's a discount in this opening couple of weeks that they're launching it of $120, and if you're upgrading, about $80 US.
Okay,
for most of us, so it's reasonable. And let's bring everybody up to speed. The Nik Collection is a series of plugins. They can stand on their own. You don't have to use them with Lightroom and Photoshop, but big updates to this make them much more usable with Lightroom and Photoshop. They have a sharpen, a noise reduction,
cool,
a black and white plugin, and color, just a general editing plugin. What else am I missing? And now they've added a perspective control.
Oh, cool.
That has addition. At first, when I opened it this morning, I was like, this is a lot more work than just doing this in Lightroom. But then I started playing with it, and it's got some options. And David McKay, I don't know if he's still in chat, but we're going to make fun of you here in a minute, as we usually do on the show, because you love that. We've got a picture of you where you ended up out on the edge of a wide angle lens. And one of the specific fixes that this new perspective control allows is to fix that distortion.
Oh, wow.
Pro tip, if you're in a group and somebody's using a wider angle lens, get in towards the middle, because nobody looks good on the edges.
No, that's right.
So let's just show real quick here. I'm going to bring open, let's see. I've got this shot here. What am I gonna do? I've got this shot here from Yosemite back in January that I like. Oh,
I love that shot, man. I forgot about that one. That was, gosh, that's amazing.
My mouse just, oh, there it goes. Whew, that scares me. I thought my whole machine just froze. Thank you. I am pretty happy with this shot, and I can take this and right click and say edit in, and just show people real quick the Silver Effects Pro 2. I'm not sure all of these have been updated. I think some of them are exactly the same. So this is going to launch the Nik plugin on top of this. And eventually it will open up here and we'll be able to do things with it. But maybe what I want to show you, you know what, why we're waiting for that? Let's edit this in Photoshop as well. Let's see if that will actually work. Yeah, because one of the things that is new is the floating plugin window now in Photoshop. It allows you to work more easily without leaving Photoshop and to quickly take whatever edits you've done on the last image in whatever plugin from Nik and apply them to new images.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is nice. So before it was you opened an image, you worked on it, you closed it, you opened a new image, and anything you wanted to do, you did again from scratch within Nik. So
I will say, the time that I had the Nik collection, even though it was an older version, I loved some of the stuff that was in it. In fact, I don't have a lot of presets and plugins and all that stuff, but the Nik collection, it had stuff that truly affected my photos in ways that I was like, wow, that's a whole different photo. It's not just like something I could do in Lightroom. So there's some pretty cool stuff. I'm excited. I'm going to have to get the new version. Yeah.
And they got 30-day trials are available for free with this new. It's all available and everything's ready to go.
That's great.
My machine is just unhappy at the moment. I'm not quite sure why. All right, so let's put that on pause while it's still trying to open these other things. And let me go and show you this other picture and the perspective. So is this, no. Oh, well, that's one of their examples. Oh gosh, where am I working from now? This is embarrassing.
That's all right, man.
Let me think for a minute.
I could tell some jokes. Okay,
here we go. So we've got this lovely photo. David McKay just ended up out on the edge, and he's also up on a little bit of a rise. He looks like a friggin' giant. I mean, you know, he's not a little guy, but he's not like 5 times Ali size either. And in this picture, he's just towering over everybody. So I wanted to see, this is the first picture that came to mind when I thought, hey, they've added this perspective control for people. So I'm going to go to open with, and notice that the Nik programs are listed here as well. So you can open images directly. You don't even have to be a Lightroom or Photoshop user. And of course, if you're using their Photo Lab, it all integrates very, very nicely as well. But I'm going to come down here to perspective effects, and that hopefully will open soon. Or maybe, there we go. Yes, trying the demo. And here it is. So first thing we could do is we can hit the auto distortion button. And this is what bugged me this morning. It wants you to go find the original file, because the original file has in it the metadata that says what lenses, cameras it was used with. Really, it's the lens, because then it goes to the database, finds what distortion correction it should apply, and does that. And so I don't have the access to the original file, but I wish you did. So I have to cancel that. But I can come down here to volume deformation, and I can turn this on, and then I can click this gun and see that there's really very little change for that. And there's some sliders where we can manipulate that a little bit. And are we seeing any? Maybe a little bit. And then let's switch to this other one here. And this, oh, now Silver Effects is opening. We'll come back to that. And now this option here is where you can manipulate the diagonal deformation and decide how much the intensity you want there as well. So we can't make David McKay shorter because he's standing up on something, but I think it has at least somewhat. Let's turn it off.
Yeah.
And then back on. Yeah, back on.
Uh-oh.
Is it? Yeah, I've just melted my machine, apparently. Having
your machine saying, "Stop yelling at me."
Yeah. Well, we saw it for a minute, right, folks?
We
this
did,
is
yeah.
Good entertainment.
I definitely did see what you were talking about. And sometimes subtle adjustments are all we need. We don't want like something massive, because it will look way too obvious.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
it is true though.
Trying to cover for you.
Yeah. Anyway, so these tools here, basically the volume deformation, that's really the only one that's significantly different than what's built into Lightroom. But it does also have built into it down here a miniature effect, which is fun fact. I just happened to apply that not from here, but in Photoshop. Photoshop also has this to the thumbnail cover of this week's live show. So if you look at that, it's a little car, a little camper that I rented back in February, crossing a bridge. It's a little blurry up and below it and above it to make it look a little like a miniature effect.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, a little tilt shift kind of effect. Yeah.
Yeah, which is tilt shift effect.
I love it.
So that's neat that it adds this in here. And again, if you have this, then you don't need that in Photoshop. It's a nice additional feature to the whole kind of DxO Photo Lab. We've talked about DxO Photo Lab in Pen as a strong alternative to Lightroom. It's missing some, but with the addition of this, plus of course the other plugins, it's quite nice. It is quite nice. Let's pop over to Silver Effects real quick and say try, and it's going to load up the image. And what I like about this, and again, I don't think they've made any real changes to the Silver Effects, but I should have read that message to you all. One of the other big changes is using TIFFs now with Nik. The files can stay editable after you've brought them back into Lightroom. So before, it was kind of like any changes you made here, you go into Lightroom, very similar to going into Photoshop. All of your Lightroom changes are then baked in, and you can't go back through your history. And so if there was anything you did you did to the photo in Lightroom, once you've gone to Photoshop, you can't really undo that. And that was true of Nik as well. It kind of baked in all of the changes in Lightroom up to that point. You made changes here, and then you were stuck with them. But now, through the magic of TIFF and TIFF layers, you are able to continue editing this image, bring it back into Silver Effects later, see those changes you made and undo them just like it was if it was in Lightroom. That's pretty powerful. What I wonder about is, as soon as I hear the word TIFF, I think big file sizes, and especially talking about layers and TIFFs. So I think these file sizes could get very large. But you've got this preset library here. And which one am I on? I don't even know. Did it just take this first one, neutral? I think that right there is pretty fantastic looking.
Yeah. I love the black and white renderings that the Nik Collection offers. I mean, it definitely, it's a whole different suite of options.
Yeah. And I have to say, similar to you, I had Nik a while ago. I used it occasionally, and then I don't know, I lost the license, or it got uninstalled one time when I formatted my computer, and I never bothered to install it again.
Right.
And Lightroom's profiles came along, which I was like, hey, this is good enough. But every time I come back into Nik, I'm like, gosh, that was one click, and I'm really happy with the way it looks.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then if you want to get into like frames and like any kind of cool textural things along the edges of your photo, it does some pretty cool stuff there as well. Yeah.
All right, and so let me show one more thing. Here I am in Photoshop, and what I can do is go to File. It took me a while to find this morning. Automate Nik Selective Tool right here. This pops up another way to access all of these different tools. So you've got Define, which is the noise reduction, the Viveza, adjust color and tonality, and the perspective effects, where we just tried to fix David McKay, and the other ones. And notice that I could click Silver Effects Pro, of course, I'm going to end up in that exact same thing I showed you a minute ago, or I can click last edit, and whatever edits I did last, it's going to apply it to this. And because this is a trial, I have to click try. If it wasn't a trial, it would seamlessly maneuver on through, but it's going to load it up and show that. And that includes if you've done selective adjustments, which these programs are capable of doing selective adjustments as well. And you have very fine control over those. In a lot of ways, very similar to the local area adjustments of Lightroom, but a little more powerful as well. So
that's cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian's asking that, can that tool permanently live in your workspace? It doesn't seem like, I could cancel this. But again, I just love that. All I did was click last edits. Cool. Can this tool live here always? It seems to go away every time I close it. But let's see, apply a brush editor, open tool automatically on launch. That's selected, but I had to go to File, Automate, and Nik Selective Tool. I would love to see it integrated as a panel.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I don't. It is floating. I can't stick it in here like all those other panels. And I thought it should be under Windows somewhere, but I think third parties are kind of locked out of some of those Adobe changes.
Yeah, I would bet.
Or Adobe, yeah. All right. All right. So that's a look at Nik, and it looks pretty good. And again, about $80 for an upgrade from earlier version, and I think it's 120 something, maybe 130 to purchase outright.
You know, I have to mention, I meant to bring this up last week. So Capture One is doing kind of a whole lot of new stuff with Nikon. Like they have a Nikon version now of Capture One. And you can get, it's Capture One Express. And from what I've read, and I need to further investigate, there's a free version, and it's not just a trial, is what I've read. It's actually a free version of Capture One. And I know this is like a whole different subject, but I was like, well, heck, I'll just download it. What the heck? I mean, I can play around with it. And I got to say, it's pretty awesome. I'm excited to see what I'm able to do. And granted, it's not stuff that I couldn't do in Lightroom, but Capture One's stepping it up. I mean, they're really, really trying to entice people with not just a lot of talk, but like a really great product. So, yeah, I downloaded it and it's working pretty awesome. I haven't used it a lot, but what I have used it for, if you're a Nikon shooter, it might be worth just messing around, you know? It doesn't mean you're going to switch to Capture One, but it's always fun to just kind of see what else is out there and see if it floats your boat.
Yep. Definitely worth checking out. I know Brian and I have talked about this. He shared it too. He's a big fan of Capture One, but it just...
Yeah, I know.
I'm just so comfortable. And I hate saying that. And I hate myself for saying that. It makes me feel lazy. But I'm just so comfortable in Lightroom. It works so well. But then every once in a while, I hear people dabble a little with Capture One or Serious and say, man, the raw conversion is a serious and noticeable step up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you because I loaded some photos into Capture One recently just to play around. And although I was really slow, it's just like when I started with Lightroom, I was like, wait, what am I doing here? Something clicked a little faster for me. And I'd messed around with it in the past, but there was a moment where I was just like, man, I kind of really like this. Although I'm still there's not all the muscle memory that I have with Lightroom. And I'll probably just stick with Lightroom, but I don't know. It's cool to see that there's something that is a pretty viable alternative if you are feeling you want to switch to something. So who knows? Kudos to them though.
I think it is a good program. Oh, there, finally the prices are showing. They were blanked out, but you have a couple of different options there. And then of course the Capture One Express is free, and I don't know the differences.
Well, that's the thing is when I downloaded Capture One Express, I was like, I don't know what I'm missing. What do I not have here? And I haven't played with it enough, but they've got all the panels on the right, just like Lightroom. So a lot of it felt like Lightroom. It felt like it felt like an update to Lightroom more than some whole new software. But I do notice that the images look better in the viewer. They just look sharp. And, you know, when you go into Photoshop, and I don't know, folks who are watching, if you're mainly a Lightroom if you mainly use Lightroom for editing, if you ever go into Photoshop, you'll notice that a lot of times the image just looks better. It just looks sharper and cleaner. And it's not that it looks bad in Lightroom, but there's just another level of perfection to it. And I feel like Capture One right out of the gate just gives you that. So it could be I don't know. I just bring it up because it was something I tried.
Yeah. It looks here like Capture One Pro for Fuji, Sony, and Nikon versus Capture One Express. It's missing Capture Pilot. I don't know what that is. It's missing instant tethered capture and camera control.
Okay.
And live view, which, so basically kind of the tethering system seems like it's missing, but otherwise it is there.
Yeah. And so and they've got kind of they've kind of separated out some of the features. They have a whole HDR, high dynamic range panel, and that's where you'll find shadows and things like that. It's not in the base, what we would see as the basic panel in Lightroom. So they kind of separate that out a little bit. So, because a lot of times when we bring shadows way up and we bring highlights way down, we kind of have what looks like an HDR image or approaching an HDR image. So again, if you're a Nikon shooter, you might want to just mess around with it. I think Joe McNally, who's one of my icons of photography, he's a Nikon ambassador, and he's doing I think a live webinar tomorrow evening all about Capture One, because he's now endorsing Capture One and moving all over to that. So it's a pretty big step for them.
Yeah, that's really cool. We'll have to look out for that. That reminds me, I make sure I hit the free options. There are a couple of really cool free content out right now that I want to make sure I mention to people before we get to the end of the show.
Cool.
Okay. All right. So that was Nik 3, the collection. And I imagine I don't think there's a bundle yet, but I'm sure they're going to bundle DxO and the Photo Lab plus the Nik collection soon at a good price. So if you hadn't purchased yet and you are looking for an alternative, folks in chat are also mentioning Luminar is very good. Tanya mentions that she loves the syncing in Lightroom between her iPad and her desktop, which cool. I know that is a real strength of Lightroom as well. It does have kind of a nice lock on that. So there's a lot of great options, which just I think is it works well for us.
Sure.
All right. Some sad news, but it's also not very surprising. Sale of interchangeable lens cameras reported for April down 50 to 60% over this time last year.
Wow.
That's a significant drop.
That's quite a significant drop.
Do we think May is going to be, May is basically past and the data for that will probably be out soon. Do we think that will have continued that drop, or will we have started to see an uptick as places like Georgia and other states have opened up and photographers are like, hey, I can get back to work?
That's a good question. I don't know. It feels like every year we read about more declines. Like everything's on the decline in photography, all the gear but at the same time, there's tons of people that still are very interested in it and want to use it. And so that's a good question. I know that I follow a lot of used camera gear forums on Facebook and things like that. And they're just lit up with people looking for a slightly used version of this one, a slightly used version of that one. And those probably aren't getting reported as sales. I just think I think a lot of people are realizing I can get into this game, or I can stay in the game without having to go retail and pay full price. I can get really awesome gear at a big discount at a time when everybody's trying to save money anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's true. Yeah. Speaking of saving money, Sony cameras are seeing discounts right now. The Sony A7 III is now at $1,798. That's $200 off. All of the other cameras are somewhere between $300, sometimes as much as $400 off. And that $1,798 deal at B&H at least comes with useful extras: SD card, spare battery, small camera bag for it. Somebody in the Pen Facebook group a couple of days ago asked, is it still worth it to buy the Sony A7 III at $2,000? And my answer is yes. And especially at $1,798, that's a nice savings. I don't think the A7 III is going to be replaced soon, but I really don't know. It could be. Sony does surprise me from time to time. And I think the more likely camera that's coming soon that we mostly care about is the A7S III, which will be the very video focused camera. And I think that will come in at a higher price because it's going to shoot high end video. I don't think we're going to see an A7 IV for a little while, but again, I don't know. Nobody's told me anything. So I don't know. We'll see. But it could point to new cameras coming, or it could just be them trying to move a few more cameras when the data is down as much as it is. And we see that with the ZV-1, which that vlogging camera that they just released. They are doing a 30-day discount, which is something they've never done before when they've released a new camera. They're like, here, for the next 30 days, it's going to be a little bit cheaper. Quick buy it. Please make our numbers better. So that's that. All right, I mentioned DJI a couple of weeks ago on the show. We said that Autel had sued DJI. A lot of news places were like, DJI drones will be banned in the USA. First off, the suit, if it went through, would only ban the sale of them. If you owned one existing, you would never be able to use it again. That would be an issue, though. But it seems like a judge has looked at this patent case and said, this doesn't really work. And DJI came back and said, oh, if you're going to sue us for this, we're going to sue you for having that other drone that looks a lot like our Phantom. And so this very much back and forth points to a judge saying it doesn't look, or actually news people reading the judge's information and between the lines and saying they're not going to be banned from sale anytime soon. So if you were worried about that, you really don't need to be. And again, these are two Chinese companies. The U.S. market is a huge market for them. I don't think they're going to let that happen, even if it was going in that direction, and it's not. So
sure.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And then before we get to our editing tips and the free stuff, Shutterstock. And, I don't think we have a huge audience that really is trying stock photography. David Carr, have you put anything on stock photography?
I really haven't. I mean, I think I've got a couple of images on Unsplash, which that's a whole different subject. But I probably should. I've never really given it a whole lot of thought.
Well, this probably will sway you against not really bothering, or maybe not. I don't know. Let me share. I'm going to share up my earnings over the last lifetime earnings, $966.90. I mean, hey, that's not nothing, but that's since 2016.
Okay.
So that's almost 4 years. And honestly, most of my earnings come from this owl right here. Can I show you this owl? Yeah. This owl that I captured a couple of years ago, and then I isolated it on its background. So I think that really is what helps it sell. Yeah. And you can see that other people have isolated owls as well, because then you can stick it on anything and use it in a lot of different ways. Yeah. That was my thinking, because I don't have your kind of typical stock photos of like a diverse office group working together, or, that computer setting and stuff that sells. So that's the direction I went. But here's what Shutterstock is about to do. Let me find that article. They are switching this up so that basically every year you get reset, and you're going to earn 15% of the royalty if you sell only up to 100 images, and 20% from 100 to 250, 250 to 500, 25% of the royalty. And that's about me, level 3 at 25% typically. Because if you look at my, monthly earnings, I have over the last 12 months, just 386 downloads. So that's going to put a pretty significant dent in the royalty earnings there for me, and probably make this not really worthwhile moving forward. There are other stock photo sites. I know Roy had mentioned Stocksy. And when he posted it, he's the one that brought this to my attention, because we've talked about this from time to time. I used to make this a regular part of the show. How much have I earned on Shutterstock this week? Because it was such a common question of how much can I earn on stock photography? And the answer is, unless you're putting a lot of time and effort into it and really shooting for it, you're not going to earn a whole lot. And now with this change, the amount of work to amount of your earnings could be hit or miss, depending on whether or not. Shutterstock says, we're doing this because we want to highlight those people that have really good current popular images.
Hmm.
and not pay, the old fogies that have a huge catalog, but doesn't have a lot of stuff that gets downloaded much. I honestly don't know what the other side of it is, except I know that the artist is not getting the good end of the lollipop.
Yeah, that's usually how these things go.
Exactly. So let's see. Stocksy is a site I want to try. They talk about putting artists first and foremost. I don't know what they pay yet. You have to be approved. I already submitted my application this morning. But as I was talking about, kind of socially aware companies, I come to the page and they are putting up content that is meaningful and useful to today. And their Instagram talks about this as well, and how they don't necessarily have the answers, but they want to help, and they're putting together resources. And I just like that. So
cool.
I'll keep you all updated to see. The issue, I think, is, Stocksy might be great, might pay me more, but it probably has nowhere near the eyeballs that Shutterstock does.
Yeah, you see Shutterstock all the time. It's just,
Yeah. And Roy's just put into the chat the Stocksy link that he mentioned. And there's other ones too. Through 500 picks, you can license images. I have a few licensed there. I think lifetime earnings there is under $1 for me. Although I have some of the same images. I don't have that outlined owl, but I have some of the other stuff. And then Adobe Stock is another place as well that I have successfully sold some images. I have much of the same catalog there as well. But again, even as popular as Adobe Stock is, it doesn't seem like I sell as often the content there. I don't know if I put up the owl there. Maybe I should, since that's what makes me so much money. So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you should.
So yeah. And then there's Getty as well, Roy says. So that's another option as well. And I think Getty integrates with 500 picks, if I'm not wrong.
I think they do. But I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Tanya says she purchased through Shutterstock sometimes for composites, but she'll check out Stocksy if it pays the artists better. Kanye, I'd be really interested. I haven't searched their collection at all. I have no idea. I imagine it's nowhere near as big as Shutterstock. But I'm curious to know what, how big is it? What kind of stuff? Let's come back for a second. What if I just search owl on here? How many owls do we get? Doesn't like owls. Quite a few, but right off the bat, I think some of these feel very snapshotty. Some are quite nice.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's beautiful. All right. There's a good selection there. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Not bad.
No, it's not bad. Does it tell us how many anywhere? No, but it does allow you to really filter this down. And they do also take video. So if you're somebody creating stock video, that's there as well. This is interesting. You can filter by camera. I wonder why you would want to. Would you?
That is interesting. Unless, maybe you're just like a total snob and you're like, I will not use anything that was shot on a Lumix.
That's right. No Lumix cameras can touch my presentation. Yeah. Interesting. Somehow this is tagged owl. I'm not sure why. Okay. All right. I think that's interesting. And chat room, you always are smarter than me. Tanya, you too. Keep us updated if you use this and play with it. Let us know if it's working for you. I'd love to know. All right. Let me just, David Carr, let's jump into the editing and share a little bit about that. And I'm going to have you go first. You sent me 2 pictures.
Sure.
We talk a little bit about them.
Okay. Well, so you have this one. So this is the wedding that I shot last week. I had a very, it was a challenging moment trying to capture getting the ring on the finger. And I could have, it would have been fine if you didn't see the actual wedding band. You only saw the engagement band. But as I was going through the photos, I was like, well, I have a pretty sharp photo here. But what you're seeing right here, the wedding band is photoshopped in. It's not really there. And I should have sent you the shot where I stole it from. But basically, what I had was a decent image of the groom holding the bride's hand and putting the ring on. But I'll tell you this, the actual engagement ring was a little soft. It wasn't as tack sharp as I wanted. So the first thing, yeah, and there it is. So there it is without the actual ring, the wedding band. I was looking at it. I was like, well, this is fine, but I kind of want to see him actually putting the ring on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and looked through my photos, and I found that right just a couple of moments later, I got a shot of her with the ring on after he had moved his hand away. And so I was like, well, I'm going to steal that image and take just the ring in Photoshop and create a layer there and put it on the actual shot. And, you know, and in doing that, in fact, I'm just going to see if I can find real quick. I was going to look for the actual shot I was going to send you, but we'll do it later. But anyway, so basically I wanted to have that ring on there. And so one of my favorite tools in Photoshop is the layer mask tool. And some people don't really ever use it. And there are a lot of ways to do what I have done here. But what I did was I grabbed the other image, which I haven't included here, but it's an image of just kind of the pure ring on her finger.
Mm-hmm.
And I just selected that area and created a copy of it and then pasted it on the image on your left here. And then I moved it into place, kind of roughly where I wanted it. And then I put it behind a layer mask. And so if you folks aren't familiar with a layer mask, what it does is it basically allows you to put this, the object that you're wanting to sort of paint in that isn't there, you put it there and then you hide it behind what's called a layer mask. And then you use a paintbrush and you paint it in. Mm-hmm. And it's nice because you can paint it in. And then if you get a little bit out of the line, you can click X and it'll put you kind of in the erase mode sort of, and it will unpaint it. And so you can kind of fine tune it. And so I turned it and tweaked it to where you don't see the whole ring. You just see a hint of it. But one of the issues I had was if you're able to see the image on the left, the engagement band was a little soft. It wasn't quite focused enough. Mm-hmm. So I opened it in Topaz Sharpen AI, mm-hmm. sharpened that image, and then I grabbed the shot of just the wedding band, which also wasn't as sharp as I wanted. It just, I was running and gunning and just didn't nail focus exactly like I wanted. So I sharpened those two and then blended them together. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. It just seems like it looks believable to me. It takes a little work, but I love that we have the ability to do these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fantastic. I definitely seeing, so this is the original, this is the band that's not so sharp. Also, I mean, I'll just say you are being picky. Just we're in at such a detail level, but it is pretty impressive that, oh yeah, it's definitely sharper over here. So
right.
Topaz did a good job there.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, it's pretty amazing. When you look at the whole image that comes out of a Topaz, edit, the sharpening application, it'll have some areas that look a little too affected. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, you're able to really get, like, if something truly was blurry and not quite, it wasn't really in focus like you needed it to be, mm-hmm. it's pretty remarkable. I mean, like I said, I saved several images where, because the main thing for me is if it's a person, if the eyes look like they're in focus, or at least most of the face looks like it's in focus, I feel like I can use it. And there were a couple shots where I don't know what was going on, but for whatever reason, I didn't nail it like I mm-hmm. normally would. And I was glad that I had something that I could fix it with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. A little insurance there.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. Layer masks are super powerful. I mean, the other example I can come up with using them is when you layer to, let's say you've done a long exposure of a waterfall, like John's picture we saw a few minutes ago. Maybe with a longer exposure, if you had some ferns in the foreground or some foliage, you could have a lot of movement in the trees, and those things could all get soft.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've done a pen video about this. Take 2 shots, one for that shutter speed where it gives you the water look you like, and then a shorter one that's going to capture all of the leaves and the ferns in sharp detail. So
Yeah, exactly.
they're not moving around. And then you can put them on top of each other and mask out so that you can see the sharp leaves in the blurry water one.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little heavy lifting, and if you're not super familiar with Photoshop, it might be one of those things you're like, I'm not going to waste my time on that. But I'm telling you, there's some stuff I've been able to do to really salvage a shot that I never knew was possible, and it's just pretty fantastic. So
yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I want to share real quick in Lightroom a couple of thoughts I have on some editing tips. I mean, I've poured most of it into pen over the last couple of years, but just I will say that a couple of things that I think really take your editing to the next level. One is getting comfortable with the local area adjustment tools. They just, the auto button is a great first step with an image. Let's just hit a different image real quick, and let me hit reset. And this is what it looked like straight out of camera. Hitting auto, I pretty much agree with all of those changes, but now it's up to me to come in and locally adjust and get, maybe these rocks up here a little bit darker with a little bit more texture on them. And the brush tool is great for that. And you cannot hurt your images. Oops. And yeah, so now I can see what I'm picking. And if you have auto mask turned on when you're brushing, you will stay within the lines unless you're, a really sloppy painter, then maybe it will go out. But that's just, look at this, how easy it is staying on the rocks. And I can jump over here and paint. And again, it's staying on those rocks because auto mask is turned on. Yeah. And that just is powerful.
Really is.
Not quite smart enough to stay off the trees there, but the rest of that it's getting. And then you can just start to play with this. Let's take texture up, clarity up. These sliders, I think you should be very gentle with when you're working with the whole image. But when you get into the local area adjustments, they are really powerful. And you can take them a lot further, and it's just going to look great. I mean, I took it all the way up to 54. Let's see how much of a difference. Just a nice bit of additional texture on El Cap there on the left. And I just really like that. With that. So really start to play around, and it's fine to start by playing with the local area adjustments and just throw stuff on and see what happens. You find the little pin if you've done a really bad job, and you can just click it and delete it. But of course, with it selected, you can double click effect to center all of that out.
That's cool.
And the next step beyond that I really want to kind of encourage people to start exploring is the range mask by Color Illuminance. It feels a little complicated, but it offers so much power. So the idea of the auto mask is when you're painting, it's going to keep it within the lines. The idea of the range mask is you can then further constrain your painting or your local area adjustment to just a specific brightness value or to a specific color. So for instance, real quick, I'm going to throw a graduated filter across the sky. And of course, because this is a very significant valley here, it's hitting the rock. So let's do something extreme like lower it. And of course, we see it lower on both sides as well. I can come down to the range mask color, and I can get the dropper and say, no, I don't want you on the rocks. I only want you on the blue part of the sky. And now instantly it pulls that range mask off. And look, it's as if I had perfectly and very carefully painted it to just the sky.
Powerful.
These, they really are.
Yeah, so, it is. I encourage people, really don't just go down your basic panel sliders and just think that moving them in the right magic formula finishes your photo. There are times when you need to look at specific elements within it and ask yourself, what do I want to increase the texture there? Do I want to brighten this a little bit here? Do I want to change the temperature of this? It's amazing what we're able to do, and it's an art form. And so you're not going to nail it the first time you try it, but the better you get with this, the more you're able to look at your photos and go, you know what, it looks great, except this rock is a little dark. I'm going to brighten it up, or this tree needs a little more texture. Or yeah, I love when you really dive into that. It's a whole new level of editing.
Yeah, cool. So those are my tips for you for today. We'll be back with some more tips, and of course, always watching the little Lightroom section in the middle. I hope you pick up some tips there as well. Okay. I think we are onto the show where I want to share some free stuff. So let me think for a second. I'll just leave the screen sharing up and give you, let's see, more owls. No, it is two things happening. Do I have it open still? Yeah, right here. Unite.photo. So the Unite Photo Conference is a huge conference with lots of big names. But then, of course, 2020 happened. And they moved it to an online session, and they made it entirely free. Donation is asked for. And so go to unite.photo, you put in your email, then they ask you to donate to COVID-19 relief and several other good charities. Whatever you want, whatever you think is worthwhile. And they give you the password for this. And so this being a bunch of different photographers sharing different thoughts. Some are they're not what they probably planned to share in person. But there is a ton of content here on all kinds of photography related topics, from chasing failure. And also, I should say this, there are some huge names in here. Jerry Gionis, Lindsay Adler, Sarah Cohn from out here in Seattle, Susan Stripling, just some fantastic people. I want to watch Susan's later. It's organizing an effective portfolio workflow. So I'd be interested to see what she has to say about that. But I don't know who Joseph Radkick is, but it says cooking, and it has these pictures of somebody cooking. So I'm curious. That's caught my attention. But there is so much awesome content here. It just keeps going. Everybody will find something useful to watch. And again, you could donate just a few dollars if you feel like it, but cool. I think you should donate something significant because there's more. For instance, Sam Hurd, he's a fantastic photographer. You've probably seen his work. He shoots often. He kind of pioneered the between prism shooting. I don't know if you've seen any of that stuff. So he does a lot of weddings. He'll shoot through these prisms so that the people are reflected again and again. Very good quality, neat work. And apparently he's talking about his accidental new business where he's shooting Zoom weddings. I started watching it. I watched about 2 minutes this morning, caught my attention. I'm curious to know more, but there's just a ton of content here. And I put it under the free because technically it could be free, but I would like you to donate a little something to them as I did this morning. And just a lot of stuff. So
that's cool. That's very, very cool. Yeah.
There's that. And there is, Netflix had a series. I missed it, but it is still online. I hadn't heard of it before, called The Free Art of Design. They've put one of their episodes on YouTube. So it is 100% free. And this one is Inside the Mind of a Photographer. Oh, and cool. I haven't watched it yet, but the comments on both Petapixel is what brought this to my attention. And then I went and looked at the YouTube. The comments are all overwhelmingly positive. Great. This seems like a fantastic look. And again, of course, even if you don't have Netflix, just open YouTube and you can watch it. And this is linked in the show notes below this video.
That's great.
Yeah. So 2 things for you all to go watch. Before you come back and watch tomorrow night at 6 p.m., Mark Loper Aviation Photography. Yeah.
And I can't recommend, I can't recommend enough. I really like Photography Online. I think they've done a great job. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've seen any of that yet, but there's some pretty cool stuff that they're doing there. It's very nerdy, but it's fun to watch. If you're a photographer, it's kind of intriguing. So
cool. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, I think we'll wrap the show up. Sure. David Carr, thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a pleasure. And I really enjoyed reading the comments over here. We don't always get to address every one of them. Really love doing the image reviews. Thank you guys. I know it's vulnerable to send your photos in and be open to criticism like that. But thank you for trusting us with that. And it's how we grow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say, Gareth said, could sales have dropped? Sorry, we had Q&As. I forgot about that until just now. Things in the UK are harder to get with new long lead times when some stock will be available. I think that could be part of it, but I think most of it is people saying, I mean, me personally too, I have no reason to buy anything right now. And I'm going to wait until I know things are going to be back to normal before I even really consider it.
Absolutely.
I think that's most of it. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, chat room, you mentioned the chat room on the side chat room. Thank you so much. I love watching you all say the clever things that you do. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Wednesday afternoon, or if you're not watching this live, wherever it is. And if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and then go right down below and click on David Carr's YouTube channel and subscribe to him as well and give him a thumbs up on his recent videos. And we're looking forward to more of those How I Edit videos.
Thank you.
And you can follow him on Instagram. I haven't put up any banners for this show. I'm terrible. I was going to make my son Henry do it, who's sitting around the corner, but you know what? I thought it would take longer to explain to him than to do it, but then I forgot. So, here we are. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll be back next week. Everybody stay safe, healthy, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, you guys. Thank you.